Imagine getting paid $11 million and then spending it all on luxury cars, stocks, crypto, and even mattresses somehow. And even worse, that money wasn't yours to spend. This is the true story of Carl Rinsch, a Hollywood director who went from a promising up-and-comer to ending up in federal prison. Carl Rinsch wasn't just some random guy off the street. He actually had serious connections in Hollywood. Back in 2000, when he was only 22 years old, he started working directly for legendary director Ridley Scott, the man behind Alien, Gladiator, and Blade Runner. Scott saw something special in Rinsch and took him under his wing at his production company, RSA Films. Rinsch quickly made a name for himself, directing high-end commercials. We're talking about car commercials for BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, and Audi. He wasn't just filming cars driving down roads. His work was slick, futuristic, and full of cutting-edge visual effects that made him look like the next big thing in Hollywood. But in 2010, everything changed for Rinsch when he created a short film called The Gift for the Philips Parallel Lines campaign. The film won him a major award at the Cannes Lions Festival, and suddenly everyone in Hollywood was paying attention. Studios were offering him massive projects. At one point, he was even supposed to direct a prequel to Alien. However, 20th Century Fox was hesitant to trust a first-time feature director with such a valuable franchise and insisted that Ridley Scott direct it himself. But before all the Netflix drama, Rinsch had already experienced a major failure. In 2013, Universal Pictures hired him to direct his first feature film, 47 Ronin, starring Keanu Reeves. The movie was supposed to be a big-budget action film about samurai warriors seeking revenge in Japan. Instead, it became one of the biggest box office bombs in Hollywood history. The production was an absolute nightmare. The budget ballooned from what was already a massive $175 million up to potentially $225 million, according to ScreenCrush.com. Rinsch had conflicts with producers and was even removed from the editing room during post-production. Reports from the set painted a picture of an extremely difficult director. During a shoot in Kenya, he reportedly forced the cast and crew to work for 24 hours straight. In Romania, the lead actress ended up in the hospital with hypothermia after he made her film a scene in the snow with bare legs. After all that, 47 Ronin finally came out on Christmas Day in 2013, where it was destroyed by critics and audiences stayed away. The movie made only $151 million worldwide against its $175 million budget, which meant Universal lost almost all of their money after marketing costs. The studio was forced to take a massive write-down, listing it as one of the biggest flops of the year. For most directors, a disaster like this would end their career, but somehow, Carl Rinsch was about to get another chance. After 47 Ronin crashed and burned, Rinsch went back to his roots and started working on a passion project, a science fiction series he was calling White Horse. The story was about an artificially created human-like race called the Organic Intelligent, who ended up rebelling against their creators. Think Blade Runner mixed with Westworld. Even though he had no completed feature film to his name that was successful, Rinsch had one massive advantage. Keanu Reeves believed in him. Reeves invested his own money into the project and became a producer, giving it instant credibility. Rinsch filmed 6 short episodes, each between 4 and 10 minutes long, and used them to pitch streaming services. And here's where things get wild. In 2018, during the height of what people called the streaming wars, every major platform was throwing money around trying to get the next big hit. Amazon, Apple, HBO, Hulu, and Netflix all wanted White Horse. Amazon was actually winning the bidding war, but then at the last second, Netflix swooped in with a massive offer. Netflix agreed to pay $61.2 million in several installments for the series, which they renamed Conquest. But they didn't just give Rinsch money. They gave him something almost no other director gets: Final Cut. This meant he would have complete creative control over the final version of the show. Netflix was so convinced Conquest could become the next Stranger Things that they basically wrote him a blank check. The contract even said that Rinsch would remain locked for life to all future seasons and spin-offs. Netflix was betting big that they had found their next franchise. Unfortunately for them, they had no idea what was about to happen. Once filming actually started, everything immediately went wrong. Rinsch began shooting in Brazil and almost immediately went over budget. Then production moved to Uruguay and Hungary, but deadlines kept getting missed. By December 2019, filming had completely stalled with 0 completed episodes. Netflix had already paid out $44.3 million and had nothing to show for it. Executives were getting nervous. Reports started coming back that things on set were getting bizarre, and Rinsch's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. There were even stories of him genuinely punching holes in walls. At one point, an intervention was even held where Rinsch's wife, his brother, members of the crew, and even Keanu Reeves himself all urged him to go to rehab. However, I couldn't find any sources confirming whether or not he ended up going. Then came March 2020, and the COVID-19 pandemic shut down film production everywhere. This is where Rinsch saw his opportunity. He went back to Netflix and told them the entire production was about to collapse unless they sent him more money immediately. He claimed he needed the funds for pre-production on a potential second season and to finish work on the first season. Netflix executives were reluctant, but they were already in too deep. They had spent over $44 million on this project and had nothing they could even release. So they agreed to wire Rinsch's production company an additional $11 million, bringing their total investment to an astounding $55 million. That $11 million payment was the biggest mistake Netflix ever made, besides making cuties. According to prosecutors, Rinsch did something truly shocking within days of receiving that $11 million. He transferred $10.5 million of it directly into his personal brokerage account at Wells Fargo. Then he started making massive, extremely risky bets on the stock market using options trading. Rinsch was gambling on Gilead Sciences, a pharmaceutical company that was developing COVID treatments at the time. He was making 7-figure bets over and over, losing spectacularly. His financial advisor at Wells Fargo actually tried to stop him, but Rinsch just told him, "I can afford to lose the money." When Wells Fargo put restrictions on his trading, limiting him to $250,000 per transaction, Rinsch simply moved his money to a new account at Charles Schwab where there were no restrictions. He told his Wells Fargo advisor in a letter, "They won't put restrictions on me there." Within just a few weeks, Rinsch had lost $5.9 million in the stock market. That's more than half of the $11 million Netflix had just given him. Gone just like that. The whole time this was happening, Rinsch was sending emails to Netflix executives telling them the production on Whitehorse was going awesome and moving forward really well. He told them the show was game-changing good. Netflix had no idea their money was disappearing into a personal trading account. After losing millions in the stock market, Rinsch decided to try his luck with cryptocurrency. He transferred about $4 million into a Kraken exchange account and started buying crypto, with a heavy focus on something called Dogecoin. Dogecoin is the cryptocurrency that literally started as a joke, featuring Doge from the best meme of all time. But by 2021, Dogecoin had become one of Elon Musk's favorite cryptocurrencies, and its value was skyrocketing. And somehow, against all odds, Rinsch's bet actually worked. He turned that $4 million into nearly $27 million in crypto profits. He had gone from losing everything to suddenly being up by millions. But the thing is, that money wasn't his to gamble with in the first place. It belonged to Netflix, and instead of using those gains to finish the show he had promised, Rinsch transferred all of that crypto money into his personal bank accounts. Then came the spending spree. What Rinsch did with the money next is almost too crazy to believe. He bought 5 Rolls-Royces and a Ferrari. After that, he spent $652,000 on designer watches and luxury clothes. One of the watches alone cost $387,000. He then dropped $3.3 million on furniture and antiques. But the most ridiculous purchases of all were the mattresses. Rinsch bought 2 custom-made mattresses from a Swedish company called Hastings. One black Grand Vivitas mattress for $439,000 and one white Vivitas mattress for $210,400. These are literally among the most expensive mattresses in the entire world, handmade in Sweden. He then spent another $295,000 on luxury bedding and linens. In total, he bought nearly $1 million worth of mattresses and bedding. He also used about $1.8 million to pay off his credit card bills, spent roughly $1 million on divorce lawyers and legal fees, and went absolutely wild on food delivery services. Court records showed that in just a 6-month period in 2022, Rinsch made over 480 orders on Postmates and Uber Eats, sometimes placing a dozen separate orders in a single day. When prosecutors asked Rinsch why he bought all these expensive cars and furniture, he claimed they were props for the show. He said the 5 Rolls-Royces were going to be used as vehicles carrying diplomats in his sci-fi series. He even argued that the $650,000 mattresses were meant to be props for a second season of Conquest that Netflix had never even approved. An arbitrator later ruled that none of these purchases were remotely necessary for the production. By late 2020, Netflix executives had heard enough. They had poured over $55 million into this project and still didn't have a single completed episode to show for it. Reports were coming back that Rinsch was behaving more and more strangely, sending bizarre messages about discovering the secret transmission mechanism of COVID-19, and claiming he could predict earthquakes and lightning strikes. In March 2021, Netflix officially told Rinsch they were done funding Conquest. They wrote off the entire $55 million investment as a tax loss. When Rinsch received the email from Netflix saying they were pulling the plug, he responded by sending a message that started with "Dear Coward" and said "Time to fess up." The messages he sent after that were so concerning that some Netflix executives thought he might be having a mental breakdown. But instead of accepting defeat, Rinsch did something shocking. He sued Netflix, claiming they owed him more than $14 million for breach of contract. He argued that the money Netflix had given him was contractually his, and that they still owed him additional payments. The legal fight went to arbitration, where both sides presented their cases. Rinsch claimed he had been working the entire time, and that Netflix had unfairly killed his passion project. He said the $11 million was meant to reimburse him for his personal expenses while he kept the production going during the pandemic. But the arbitrator didn't buy it. In May 2024, the arbitrator ruled completely in Netflix's favor, awarding the company $8.8 million in damages and giving them control over all the Conquest footage. The ruling stated that Rinsch had misused production funds for luxury vehicles, personal expenses, and speculative investments. By this point, Rinsch was also going through a messy divorce from his wife Gabriella, who was also a producer on the show. Court documents revealed he owed her $420,000 in spousal support. During divorce proceedings, Rinsch claimed he was completely broke with zero monthly income. He said he had been forced to borrow $150,000 from relatives just to survive. But his wife's lawyers pointed out that he was living in an ultra-luxury apartment complex in West Hollywood that cost $16,500 per month in rent. He was also spending $3,500 per month dining out. It didn't exactly look like someone who was broke. In March 2025, federal prosecutors had seen enough. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York arrested Rinsch at his home in West Hollywood and charged him with 7 criminal counts. The charges included 1 count of wire fraud, 1 count of money laundering, and 5 counts of engaging in monetary transactions using property from unlawful activities. Combined, these charges carried a maximum sentence of 90 years in federal prison. According to the indictment, Rinsch had defrauded Netflix by claiming he needed money to finish the show, then immediately diverting those funds for personal use and speculative investments. Prosecutors said he lied to Netflix about the show's progress while he was actually gambling their money away in the stock market and buying luxury goods. Rinsch pleaded not guilty and was released on a $100,000 bond. The trial began in early December 2025 in federal court in Manhattan. Rinsch's defense team argued that the whole situation was just a misunderstanding and a contractual dispute. They said Rinsch had completed principal photography on the first season and that the $11 million was meant for him to keep as reimbursement for his personal expenses. His lawyers even filed motions saying Rinsch had been in a state of psychosis during production and couldn't form the intent necessary for fraud charges. They claimed his mental state was made worse by prescription stimulants and the psychological stress of the COVID pandemic. Rinsch himself told the stand to testify in his own defense. He told the jury he thought he was creating the next Star Wars or Game of Thrones, and that he was just negotiating terms for a sequel. He claimed the $11 million was his money to spend however he wanted. But prosecutors presented devastating evidence. They showed the jury bank records proving Rinsch had moved Netflix's money into his personal accounts. They showed his massive trading losses. They displayed text messages where he told Netflix everything was going great while he was actually losing millions. Former Netflix executives, including Cindy Holland, who originally acquired the project, testified that they had only agreed to one season and expected Rinsch to use the $11 million to finish that season, which he never did. After less than 5 hours of deliberation on December 11, 2025, the jury reached their verdict: guilty on all 7 counts. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton released a statement saying Carl Rinsch took $11 million meant for a TV show and gambled it on speculative stock options and crypto transactions. Today's conviction shows that when someone steals from investors, we will follow the money and hold them accountable. Carl Rinsch is scheduled to be sentenced on April 17, 2026. While he technically faces up to 90 years in prison, the judge stated the actual sentence will likely be much less, probably around 20 years. Netflix declined to comment on the verdict, but they're not done yet. The company has already secured an $11.8 million civil judgment against Rinsch, and they're conducting debtor examinations to try to seize whatever assets he has left. Based on court documents, Rinsch claims he's essentially broke. His Kraken crypto account had dwindled to just $68,000 by 2023. He says his only possessions are some kitchen appliances, about $5,000 in furniture, $3,900 in a brokerage account, and $150,000 in a Writers Guild of America pension that he can't access yet. The state of California has also placed $68,000 in tax liens against him. Rinsch's lawyer, Benjamin Zeman, released a statement after the conviction, saying he believes the verdict sets a dangerous precedent for artists who become embroiled in contractual and creative disputes. But for now, Rinsch's career in Hollywood is completely over. Not a single episode of Conquest was ever completed or aired. All those hours of footage Rinsch shot across Brazil, Uruguay, and Hungary are now owned by Netflix as part of the arbitration ruling. Whether the company will ever try to salvage anything from the project, or if it will just sit in a vault somewhere forever, nobody knows at this time. So, what can we learn from the insane story of Carl Rinsch? Maybe it's that no amount of talent or connections can make up for bad judgment, or that the streaming wars made companies so desperate for content they stopped doing basic due diligence. Or maybe it's just that you shouldn't gamble with other people's money, especially when you're supposed to be making a TV show. Netflix gave a director with one massive flop on his resume over $55 million and almost no oversight. They ignored warning signs from his previous work on 47 Ronin, where he'd had similar problems with budgets and erratic behavior. They gave him final say-so and essentially unlimited creative control. And when things started going wrong, Instead of cutting their losses, they poured in even more money hoping to save the project. Carl Rinsch went from being a promising young director under Ridley Scott's mentorship to a convicted fraud facing up to 90 years in prison. He burned through $55 million, destroyed his career, lost his family, and created a show that will never see the light of day. And Netflix is still out $55 million with nothing to show for it except maybe one of the craziest stories in Hollywood history. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more videos like this one, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.